It'll just be for a few months while we get back on our feet, Jessica had promised her 2 kids, clinging to her legs, while Mike nodded earnestly behind her. We've lost everything, Natalie. You're our only hope. My name is Natalie, and at 29, I was about to make the biggest mistake of my life by letting my stepsister's family move into my carefully curated 2-bedroom apartment, the home office I'd spent years perfecting, the peaceful space where I built my freelance design business. All of it was about to be invaded by chaos. The kids can sleep in the office, Jessica continued, gesturing to her 4-year-old Emma and 6-year-old Tyler. We'll take the guest room. You'll barely notice we're here. I looked at my pristine living room, where my drafting table sat near the window, catching the perfect natural light, and at my organized desk with dual monitors perfectly positioned. The peace and quiet I needed to meet my client deadlines were at stake. I work from home, I reminded them. I need that space for my business. Oh, you can work anywhere, Jessica waved dismissively. The kitchen table, your bedroom. It's not like you need a whole room just for drawing. I bit back a response about how graphic design was more than just drawing, how I'd built a successful business that paid for this apartment, how I'd carefully chosen this place for its perfect layout and lighting. But they were family, and they had nowhere else to go, or so they claimed. Their own place had been foreclosed on after months of missed payments, though they blamed the bank, the economy, their jobs, everyone but themselves. It's temporary, Mike assured me, though something in his tone felt off. Just until we find new jobs and save up a deposit. I should have asked more questions about their plans, their timeline, their budget, about why they couldn't stay with Mike's family, or Jessica's dad, my former stepfather, who'd remarried and moved to Florida, about why they'd waited until the last possible moment to ask for help. Instead, I found myself saying yes because they were family, because they had kids, because Jessica had been crying about not wanting her children to be homeless. You're a lifesaver, Jessica hugged me, her designer perfume overwhelming. We'll be model house guests, I promise. 2 days later, they moved in with more belongings than should have been possible for people who'd lost everything. The kids immediately began running through my quiet apartment, their shrieking echoing off the walls. Mike sprawled on my couch, asking about the Wi-Fi password and cable channels, and Jessica was already rearranging my kitchen cabinets to make them more functional. The first week was a preview of the nightmare to come. Every morning, I'd wake up to find my kitchen in complete disarray, dishes piled high, food left out overnight, sticky spots on my pristine counters. Jessica claimed she was too exhausted to clean up after cooking for her family. My carefully organized refrigerator became a chaos of half-eaten leftovers and juice boxes. My specialized art supplies, which I kept in specific places for easy access during client calls, were constantly being moved or tidied away where I couldn't find them. The kids need space to do their homework, Jessica explained when I found my drafting table pushed into a corner, covered with coloring books and crushed crayons. You can work in your bedroom, right? My bedroom became my last refuge, but even that wasn't sacred. Jessica would barge in without knocking, usually while I was on client calls. The kids need quiet time, she'd whisper-shout, ushering Emma and Tyler into my personal space. Just watch them for an hour while Mike and I run errands. The errands always seemed to take 3 or 4 hours. Meanwhile, I'd try to maintain my professional composure on Zoom calls while Emma drew on my walls and Tyler jumped on my bed. We're job hunting, Mike would say when they finally returned, though neither of them ever seemed to have actual interviews. They'd come back with shopping bags from the mall, or Jessica would have a fresh manicure. My grocery bills tripled. They never contributed, claiming they needed to save every penny for their new place. Yet somehow, Jessica always had money for her weekly hair appointments and designer coffee runs. Family helps family, she'd say whenever I brought up expenses. Remember when our parents were married? We shared everything then. We hadn't shared everything. Jessica had taken everything, just like she was doing now. She'd been 12 and I'd been 11 when our parents married, and those 3 years before her dad left my mom had been a preview of this exact dynamic. You're being dramatic, she said when I asked her to please stop reorganizing my art supplies. This is how normal families live. You're just not used to it because you live alone like a hermit. The word temporary started feeling like a joke. They made no effort to look for apartments. Every time I mentioned their plans, they had a new excuse. The rental market is so tough right now, or we're waiting for the right opportunity, or the kids are finally settled in, we can't uproot them again so soon. Meanwhile, my work suffered. Meeting deadlines became nearly impossible with constant interruptions and my workspace in chaos. Clients started noticing the decline in my productivity. My carefully built reputation was at risk. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon. I'd gone to a coffee shop to meet a crucial deadline, the only way to get any work done lately. When I returned home 3 hours later, my living room had been completely transformed. My drafting table was gone, shoved into the apartment storage unit without my permission. My dual-monitor setup had been pushed against a wall, replaced by a giant toy organizational system. Bright plastic bins filled with the kids' toys dominated the space where I'd built my career. "Surprise!" Jessica beamed, gesturing at the chaos. "Now the kids have a proper play area. Much better use of the space, right?" I stood frozen in the doorway, my laptop bag sliding from my shoulder. "Where's my drafting table?" "Oh, we put that old thing in storage. You never really used it anyway. You're always working on your laptop these days." Because they'd taken over my workspace. Because I'd been forced to adapt to their invasion of my home. Because I'd been too nice to stand up for myself. "Those monitors are an eyesore," she continued, wrinkling her nose. "We should really—" "Don't touch my equipment," I snapped, my voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. "This is my office, my workspace, my home." "Our home now," Mike called from the couch, not even looking up from his phone. "Family shares, right?" "The kids need space to play," Jessica insisted. "You can't expect them to be cooped up in one room all day. They're children. And I'm a working professional who needs her office. This apartment isn't a daycare center, it's my workplace." "You're being selfish," Jessica's voice took on that familiar wounded tone. "After everything we've done—" "Everything you've done? What exactly have you done except take over my home, disrupt my work, and disrespect my boundaries? We're family." "No, you're squatters. You haven't looked for jobs, haven't apartment hunted, haven't contributed a dime to expenses. You've just taken and taken and taken." Emma started crying at my raised voice. Jessica immediately scooped her up, giving me a look of pure martyrdom. "Now look what you've done. Come on, sweetie, let's get away from mean Aunt Natalie who doesn't want to share her toys." I watched them retreat to the guest room, their room now apparently, and something inside me snapped. This wasn't sharing. This was invasion. This was theft of my space, my peace, my livelihood. That night, after they'd all gone to bed, I opened my laptop and started making plans. Over the next week, I executed my plan with the same precision I used in my design projects. First, I found a new apartment across town. A one-bedroom with a dedicated office nook and strict lease terms about overnight guests. I paid the deposit from my emergency fund, grateful I'd maintained savings despite my increased expenses. During my coffee shop work sessions, I slowly moved my most important belongings to a small storage unit, my expensive drawing tablet, my backup drives, my portfolio materials. Anything I couldn't risk Jessica reorganizing disappeared bit by bit. I documented everything: photos of my invaded workspace, screenshots of ignored texts about job hunting and apartment searching, lists of expenses they'd never contributed to. I even recorded Jessica's admission that they hadn't actually looked at any apartments because they were too comfortable in my place. My landlord was surprisingly understanding when I explained the situation. "They're not on the lease," he reminded me. "Technically, they're unauthorized occupants. I can have them removed. Just don't renew my lease next month," I told him, "and maybe mention you'll be showing the apartment to new tenants." I arranged for my utilities to be disconnected the day after my planned departure. Not immediately, I wasn't cruel enough to leave the kids without power or water, but soon enough to force Jessica and Mike to finally take action. The hardest part was maintaining normalcy while I prepared. I endured Jessica's daily rearranging of my remaining belongings. I nodded through Mike's excuses about the job market. I even babysat one last time while they went apartment hunting, which, according to their Instagram stories, looked suspiciously like a day at the mall. "We really appreciate everything you've done," Jessica said that evening, sprawled on my couch with shopping bags at her feet. "You're such a good sister, letting us stay until we find the perfect place." "And when will that be?" I asked, watching her unpack new designer shoes. "Oh, you know how it is. These things take time. We can't just settle for any apartment. We have the children to think about, right? The children. I mean, this place is perfect for us. Great school district, nice neighborhood, plenty of space now that we've reorganized. We might as well stay through the summer at least." I looked around my former office, now a chaotic playroom, and smiled. "Sure, through the summer." They had no idea I'd be gone in 3 days. No idea that their comfortable invasion of my life was about to end. No idea that sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation, it's careful planning. I moved on a Wednesday when everyone was out. Jessica at her salon appointment, Mike at his weekly networking lunch, which seemed to involve more beer than networking, and the kids at school. My new apartment was ready. The moving company was efficient and quick. By noon, everything I owned was either in my new place or safely in storage. I left behind a detailed letter on the kitchen counter, along with copies of every expense they'd racked up during their stay, 3 months of grocery receipts, utility bills showing triple the normal usage, even estimates for repairing the walls Emma had decorated with markers. "Dear Jessica and Mike," I wrote, "by the time you read this, I'll be gone. My lease ends in 2 weeks, and I've informed the landlord I won't be renewing. The utilities will be disconnected next Tuesday. You have until then to find new arrangements. I've documented everything. Your lack of job searching, your shopping sprees while claiming poverty, your destruction of my workspace. If you attempt to harass me or damage anything else in the apartment, all of this goes to the landlord and, if necessary, the police. The drafting table you put in storage, it's been moved to my new place, along with everything else I own. What's left belongs to you, including responsibility for your own lives." I knew the fallout would be nuclear. Within hours of their return, my phone exploded with messages. "Jessica, how could you do this to us? Mike, real nice, abandoning your family. Jessica, the kids are crying. Are you happy now? Mike, you better tell us where you moved. Jessica, Mom would be so ashamed of you." I blocked their numbers, then their social media accounts, then the flying monkeys. Mutual acquaintances they'd recruited to guilt me. My new apartment felt like a sanctuary. My restored office set up a symbol of reclaimed independence. The next morning, my landlord called. "Your stepsister tried to claim tenants' rights," he said, sounding amused. I reminded her that unauthorized occupants have no rights, and she needs to be out before the utilities get disconnected. How did she take that? About as well as you'd expect. Lots of crying about family loyalty and homeless children. I told her she should have thought about that before taking advantage of yours. The guilt trips might have worked before, but sitting in my peaceful new home, my workspace restored to its proper setup, all I felt was relief. News of their reaction filtered back through family channels. They'd called everyone, spinning a tale of my cruelty and betrayal, how I'd abandoned them without warning, left them homeless, traumatized their children. But their story had holes, big ones. "If you were so desperate," my Aunt Susan asked them, "why did Jessica post about her weekly spa days? Why was Mike checking in at sports bars during job interviews? Their social media history betrayed them. While claiming poverty, they documented 3 months of shopping sprees, salon visits, and long lunches, all while living rent-free in my apartment. My former stepfather called from Florida. "Jessica says you kicked them out without warning," he said. "That true?" Check their messages to me from when they first moved in. It was supposed to be temporary while they got back on their feet. 3 months later, they hadn't even looked for apartments. "Sounds like Jessica," he sighed. "She's always expected others to solve her problems. Her mother and I spoiled her that way." 2 days before the utilities were set to be disconnected, reality finally hit them. My landlord reported they'd started packing, though not before Jessica tried one last manipulation tactic. She offered to pay rent going forward, he told me. I reminded her that I already had new tenants lined up, ones without a history of foreclosure. They ended up moving in with Mike's parents, the same parents who'd been impossible to live with when they'd first needed a place to stay. Funny how possibilities open up when you have no other options. The best revenge, though, was the silence, the peace, the ability to work without interruption, to keep my space organized, to live without constant demands and guilt trips. My business recovered quickly. Turns out it's easier to meet deadlines when you're not being treated like free childcare. My clients noticed the improvement in my work, leading to new projects and referrals. A week after they moved out, Jessica made one last attempt to contact me through a mutual friend. "She says they would have found their own place eventually," the friend reported. "That you just needed to be patient and understanding." "I was patient for 3 months," I replied. Understanding went out the window when they took over my office without permission. She also mentioned they might need a place to stay again soon. Mike's parents were being difficult about their living arrangements. I blocked that friend too. 6 months later. 6 months after my great escape, My business was thriving. The peace and quiet of my new apartment, combined with my restored professional workspace, allowed me to take on more clients and raise my rates. I'd even hired a virtual assistant to handle my growing workload. The family drama had mostly settled, though Jessica and Mike still managed to make their presence known. They'd moved 3 more times, from Mike's parents to a series of increasingly shabby rentals, each time claiming the landlords were unfair or the neighbors hostile. Apparently, other people weren't as tolerant of their entitled behavior as I had been. My Aunt Susan kept me updated on their attempts to find their next victim. They tried staying with various family members, but their reputation preceded them. No one was willing to risk becoming their next free accommodation. Jessica actually had the nerve to suggest moving in with you, Susan told me over coffee. Said they'd learned their lesson about respecting boundaries. I reminded her. That's exactly what she told me. The kids, at least, had found some stability. Mike's parents had insisted on having them stay during the week so they could remain in their school, while Jessica and Mike only had them on weekends. It wasn't an ideal situation, but it was better than the chaos they'd been living in. My new apartment became everything I'd wanted my old place to be. I set up a proper home office with a dedicated client meeting space. My work area stayed organized, my kitchen remained clean, and my peace was uninterrupted by demands for impromptu babysitting. One morning, I received an unexpected email from Jessica. I've been doing a lot of thinking. Maybe we didn't handle things the best way when we stayed with you. We were going through a rough time, but that's no excuse for taking advantage. I see that now. The kids miss you. Would you consider meeting for coffee? It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get from her, but something about the timing felt off. I called Mike's mother, who'd become an unlikely ally. Oh, they just got evicted again, she confirmed. Jessica's been calling everyone, trying to find a place to stay. Don't fall for it. I wrote back a simple response. I'm glad you've gained this perspective. I hope it helps you make better choices in the future, but I'm not interested in meeting right now. Her reply came within minutes. We've really changed, and we found this great apartment, but we need help with the deposit. Just a small loan. We'll pay you back right away. For the kids' sake. There it was. The real reason for the sudden apology. I didn't bother responding. Later that week, I received a large design project from a client who'd found me through my upgraded portfolio website. The fee would cover 3 months of my old apartment's rent, the same amount I'd spent supporting Jessica's family while they lived with me. Sitting at my pristine drafting table, watching the sunset through my office window, I felt nothing but gratitude for having found the strength to break free. Sometimes, the biggest gift you can give yourself is the courage to say no to toxic family members. My first holiday season in my new apartment brought another wave of family drama. Jessica and Mike had orchestrated a campaign to paint me as the villain at every family gathering, conveniently forgetting to mention their own actions. But it's Christmas, my Aunt Mary pleaded. Can't you just forgive them? They've learned their lesson. Had they? According to Mike's mother, they'd just been asked to leave their latest apartment for non-payment of rent, despite both finally having jobs. Jessica was working part-time at a boutique, though most of her paycheck went to maintaining her appearance. Mike had found work at a car dealership, but spent more time hanging out with his Kio workers than actually selling cars. They're still living beyond their means, Mike's mother confided. Designer clothes, expensive restaurants, salon visits, then they cry poverty when the rent's due. At least the kids are stable with us during the week. I declined the family Christmas dinner, opting instead to host a small gathering at my new place for the relatives who'd supported me. My Aunt Susan brought her famous pie, Mike's mother came with the kids for a brief visit, and my former stepfather even flew in from Florida. This is what a home should feel like, Susan commented, looking around at my organized space. Peaceful, respectful, not like a tornado of entitlement blew through. The kids had changed too. Away from their parents' chaos, they'd settled into better routines. Emma no longer drew on walls, and Tyler had improved in school. They were still energetic, but now their energy was channeled into proper activities rather than destroying someone else's space. Having them during the week has made such a difference, Mike's mother said. They need structure, not constant upheaval. My business continued to grow. I'd converted the apartment's small dining nook into a client meeting area, complete with a professional backdrop for video calls, no more children screaming in the background or Jessica barging in during meetings the Friday before Christmas. Jessica made another attempt to reconnect. The kids made you Christmas cards. We'd love to drop them off, maybe stay for a quick visit. We can catch up, talk about old times. I've really been reflecting on everything. I knew this script. First, a seemingly innocent visit, then a sad story about their current living situation, finally the request. Just a temporary stay, just until they found something else, just because we're family. You can mail the cards, I replied. My address hasn't changed. Don't be like that, she wrote back. It's Christmas. Family should be together. We've changed so much, you'll see, and we found this amazing apartment, but the deposit is a bit high. I didn't bother reading the rest. Instead, I focused on wrapping presents for the kids, which I'd send to Mike's parents' house. They would have a stable Christmas there without the stress of wondering where they'd be living next month or watching their parents manipulate relatives for money. A year after my escape, I received a surprising call from Mike's mother. Jessica and Mike had finally gotten an apartment they could afford in a modest complex across town. No luxuries, no premium location, just a basic 2-bedroom that matched their actual budget. The evictions finally caught up with them, she explained. No decent place would rent to them, so they had no choice but to live within their means. Sometimes hitting bottom is the only way people learn. The kids still spent weekdays with their grandparents, which had become a formal arrangement through family court. They visited my new apartment occasionally, always with their grandmother, never with Jessica and Mike. Aunt Natalie's house is so quiet and clean, Emma commented during one visit. That's because she takes care of her things, their grandmother explained pointedly, and respects other people's space. My business had doubled in size. I'd hired 2 remote designers to help with the workload, and my client list included several prestigious companies. The peace and stability of my new life had allowed me to focus on growth instead of constantly managing chaos. Jessica still tried to reach out occasionally, usually when they needed money, but her messages had lost their power over me. I'd learned that family shouldn't be used as a weapon or an excuse for bad behavior. My former stepfather summed it up best during his last visit. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for family is let them face the consequences of their own actions. You didn't abandon them, you just stopped enabling them. During one of my Aunt Susan's visits, she noticed the empty picture hooks on my living room wall. I'd taken down the family photos after moving, not wanting daily reminders of that chaotic time. You could fill these walls with your own story now, she suggested. Your designs, your achievements, your peaceful new life. She was right. The next day, I began creating a gallery wall, framed prints of my best design work, professional awards I'd earned, and a few select photos of the family members who'd stood by me. Jessica saw the photos on my social media and immediately messaged, "Nice to see you've got pictures up. We should take a new family photo for your wall, maybe over dinner at your place." I had to laugh at her persistence. Even now, she was still trying to find a way back in. But my walls, both physical and emotional, were finally mine to decorate as I chose. Mike's mother sent me a holiday card with a recent photo of the kids. They looked happy, settled. Emma had joined a children's art class, and Tyler was playing Little League baseball. They were thriving in the stability their grandparents provided, proof that structure and boundaries could make all the difference. My new apartment wasn't just a home anymore. It was a testament to what's possible when you stop sacrificing your peace for other people's chaos. Every organized drawer, every quiet morning, every successful client meeting was a reminder that sometimes the family you need to protect most is yourself.